Hey there, happy Saturday. Saturday, May 20th, 2023. The Ken Matthews Report, weekend edition. Hope you had a good week. It was a long week. It was an eventful week. I think there was more good than bad. You know, in the news cycle. I'm not even gonna call it the news cycle. I'm just gonna say what's happening because the news cycle is pretty much just narrative and blather. But I think overall, the fact that more information is coming out about how dirty and corrupt our institutions are, and that's depressing, but in a way, on the back end, it's also hopeful because at least it's getting out. I think, and I might do a whole segment on this, because I was jotting down some notes, and I just think that the most frustrating thing about where we are today is the majority of Americans, I think we could agree on this, are smart, commonsensical people. They may do things differently than you and I do, but the majority can get from point A to point B. They can work, they can do businesses, they're very successful. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of millionaires. I don't know how many billionaires there are. In other words, the population does a pretty good job without the government having to wipe their butt, figuratively speaking. Of course, you really couldn't do that much during COVID because there wasn't a lot of toilet paper. So I think what is most frustrating, and it's going to get a lot of people angrier than they've ever been, we find ourselves in the position we're in. And I know conservatives love to take responsibility, right? That's a big thing. Not for the position we're in. I'm saying that conservatives are like, you got to be responsible for your own actions. Liberals are like, it was their fault. It was the government's fault. It was this. It was my skin color. It was the teacher. It was the wind direction. Something screwed it up, and now the government or you have to take care of it. Yes, we need to take responsibility for our own actions, of course. But when you look at the institutions that are and were designed to protect us, they failed. And we trusted them. And I think that's where the caca hits the fan in the upcoming months. When people realize, wait a minute, you're the FBI. We trusted you. Wait a minute, you're the DOJ. We trusted you. We've kind of accepted the fact that most politicians are, they're garbage bins. They're just, it's a grift. Some of that grift in America over $250 million. When he first ran, he was worth about $3.5 million, which is a lot of money. When he first got into politics or when he first ran for president or whatever, I don't know the exact date. But that's good money, $3.5 million. But now he's worth $250 million, and the rumor is it's a lot more. So we're going to talk about that. And it's not just Obama. It's, everybody that touched. Well, I think so far, every politician in our lifetime, for the most part, the presidency has been a cash machine for them, except Trump. He's been bleeding money since day one. Legal fees, boycotts, his brands being tarnished, his character being attacked, his companies being attacked. I think he's the only guy that everybody else went into the Oval Office and they went around. It was like a ride, since it is Oval. We'll use that, right? It's a ride. I've never been in the Oval Office. But the ride. So they go in and they spin around in the Oval Office a few times and they come out and they're billionaires or multimillionaires, or they never have to work again in their lives. Now, Trump doesn't have to work again ever if he doesn't want to financially, but he was like that when he went in. He was a billionaire when he went in. So getting back to we the people, how we got to this point, I believe because of our nature and our ethics, we trust people to do what they're supposed to do. And that's actually a good quality, because you don't want to be completely untrustworthy. You don't want to be paranoid. You don't want to be, looking at everybody. But unfortunately, if your government lets you down, which ours has, if your media lets you down, which our media has, if your education system lets you down, it's kind of difficult not to be a little paranoid, is it not? So as much as we beat ourselves up, gosh, I should have known. I should have saw that. I knew that guy. I knew that was that. At the end of the day, everybody has a job to do, and we've been led to believe that the government can do theirs. And a lot of people in the government cannot do theirs, or they're in the government to leverage being in the government, and we are the dupes. We're the cash flow, we're the money, we're the targets, we're the ones getting played. So I go through periods where I beat myself up and say, I can't believe I didn't see that. I should have saw that coming. I can't believe that. I can't believe I fell for that. But in reality, I don't think we should beat ourselves up as much as we do. And here's why. Because if we didn't trust certain institutions, things would just collapse. Now, they're about to, because we trusted the wrong people, and that's where we're guilty. But who knew? We trusted politicians to protect and defend the Constitution. We trusted the news media to vet those people. We don't have the technology unless you're doing it for a living. Even then it's difficult. So we trusted public schools to educate our kids. And they failed. In many cases. Not in all, but in many. We trusted the news media to vet our candidates. I'm voting for Senator so-and-so. Senator so-and-so is going to be on a debate, or he'll go through several debates, he or she, or they'll be on 60 Minutes, or they'll be on Dateline, or they'll be interviewed, and then we can get to know them. We'll get to the truth. So the media failed us there. What the media did was obscene over the last 30 years in this country. I don't even know how you can walk in and out of the New York Times with a straight face anymore. Or CNN. The media has covered up what they didn't want us to know, fed us garbage which they were told to feed us, and attacked people they didn't like. So they let us down. But when you look at the cumulative effect of this, the schools, parents, many of us are parents, I'm parents, I just trusted the fact, and knock on wood, I haven't seen any heavy blowback yet. I mean, my kids aren't, walking around with a Nazi flag or with a commie hat on like someone that works for the Biden administration. Knock on wood. But you and I trusted, because that's how we go to work, we do our job. If your job is to drive this truck from point A to point B safely and efficiently and not steal the cargo and keep track of it, that's what you do. And we all trust the government, the public school, the news media, whatever, to do the same thing. The police, the FBI, we trust them. We see the police car. We see, the federal, the FBI shield. Whoa. I mean, that's one of the scariest and yet most impressive badges out there. But it is truly tarnished now. It is truly almost laughable. But it started with our trust. So I trusted, just like you, when my kids were in school, they're learning what they should learn. They're learning how to speak correctly. They're learning how to do math. They're learning logic, discernment, critical thinking. They're learning how to behave in a group. They're learning how to treat their fellow students with respect. That's what I'm thinking. And I think when my congressperson or senator or representative or city council person, when they go to work, when they do work, they're looking out for me. It's trust. So the reason I'm saying don't beat yourself up that badly is these people failed us. Many did it by lying. They violated our trust. And I think this is one of the worst things you can do. Okay? Maybe you have a partner. Maybe it's a marriage, an agreement, any type of violation of trust that goes wrong. You know how damaging that is. Well, that is what the United States government and the people that have hijacked it have done to us. And I think we're still shell-shocked by it. I mean, I'm not just talking about stolen elections. I'm talking about the whole core thing, the whole glue that keeps this together is the trust that when the men and women in government take the oath, they're going to obey the oath, and that oath to protect the Constitution, which is the law of the land, which is the blanket, that's the thing that protects us. As long as those people, the military fighting to defend it, the law enforcement community adhering to it, the government abiding by it, as long as that works, trust, it's there. Right? There's always that, well, maybe this has changed over the last, I would say, 25 years. But remember, don't worry, the police are on their way. No. Now it's a crapshoot. Do you need to worry or not? Don't worry, we contacted the FBI. They're going to investigate. Uh-oh, someone's getting framed. You see, the trust is gone. And that's not your fault. It's not my fault. As much as I want to beat myself up for not knowing enough about candidates and 30 years ago not paying attention to mayoral races and city councilmen and things that were going on, at the end of the day, I, like the other 300 plus million Americans, trusted the person I elected. But more than that, I even trusted this far. I was this naive 35, 40 years ago. I trusted that if we sent a bad apple by accident to our government, they would spit them out. Yes, I did. That's what I believed. That's what I believed. When I left the North Carolina State University with my flimsy little bachelor's degree in political science, I said, well, let's say I vote for Senator so-and-so, and he turns out to be a real scumbag, like a John Edwards or, a Mitch McConnell or a Lindsey Graham or a Mitt Romney or I could go on. Let's say if I vote for them and they turn out to be a real scumbag, well, that's okay. Because I know the government system and how it works, the Constitution, the documents, the history, and it'll fix itself. Wow, was I wrong? Was I wrong? Because I trusted. So I think of all the things that we've lost in the last several decades, especially especially just since 2015, is trust. Listening to the director of the FBI is almost a laughable exercise. It's almost a joke. It's right up there. I don't know who has less credibility. Don Lemon, Joy Behar, Lindsey Graham. I mean, I can just go through lists of people that as soon as they come on the screen, you go, okay, this is going to be crap. This is BS. And that's a shame. So this is what we're trying to figure out. This is what we're trying to figure out. Because over the last 30 years, one thing we've learned is every single time, those of us that are law-abiding citizens, love the country, we love our families, we're working hard, we're paying the taxes, which is another great grift that hopefully I hope that grift will end in my lifetime. I don't know if it will. I just don't think there's enough people that really want to get into it, unfortunately. There are millions that have, and successfully, but there's just too many people that it's just too big of a mountain, the IRS. It's a grift. And taxation, the way they do it, is illegal. There's so many parts of our government now that the trust is gone, the credibility's gone. It's no longer constitutional, but we're so overwhelmed by it. But I think, and this is what I was thinking about this morning before the show, that's the thing that it's not, it's not the fact that, now that there's a dozen Biden people that are being looked at, and it's almost, again, what do you even say to that? A dozen members of the president's family, including his crackhead son, are being investigated. And then the attorney general calls it off. Last week he called it off. You probably didn't even hear about that. The attorney general pulled the investigations on Hunter. I'm sure someone called and said, this is what I think now, from my experience. Someone probably called Merrick Garland and said, do you want those pictures coming out? Seriously. I think that's I truly believe at this point, the only reason people would violate the law this fervently is because they're compromised. Because we, again, we're the trusters. We trust. We're the people that say, well, that's not going to happen. They can't do that. That's the FBI. They can't do that. The FBI's looking into them now. So what? The FBI lost my trust, I don't know, 9/11? So it's the trust thing that really hurts. That's what hurts. It's not, I can't stand Obama, he's getting rich, or, Clinton's a grifter, or so-and-so was human trafficking. It's the fact that it is a free-for-all, and we all trusted. We trusted it. They put their hand on the Bible. They raise their right hand. They swear to protect and defend. And we think, don't worry, when Senator so-and-so gets this on his desk, there's going to be a reckoning. No, there's not. Don't you worry. State police is corrupt, but the FBI is investigating the state police, and the DOJ is investigating the FBI. And at the end of the day, the DOJ and the FBI and the DHS and the IRS and the CIA and the state police are so damn compromised that even if they wanted to reinstate the trust, they probably couldn't pull it off because there's so many bad actors at the top. So that's the reality. That's the kick in the gut. It's the trust. And it sounds silly, and people talk about it all the time. They talk about the trust. Every campaign speech. I'm going to earn your trust. You can trust me. And I just keep running into people that I can't trust to even keep their mouth shut about something. I don't know. I can't. How many people have to lock, how many people at work? Now, I'm self-employed now, and I work with some very good people, by the way, over the years. Many more good people than bad. But how many people, you have to lock your stuff up when you go to lunch? Why do you do that? Well, I don't want it to get stolen. So you're telling me you can't trust where you work. That's it. I say you can't leave that document on the desk. You can't leave that document here or there because you cannot, because the trust. I didn't think I'd spend half this segment talking about trust, but when you think about it, it's kind of why we're where we are. Because we are a accepting, trustworthy, gracious people. That's what we are as Americans. I haven't lived in another country. I have visited, but I haven't lived. I've lived in this country long enough to know the majority of us can be trusted. But somehow, our government, our law enforcement, our educational systems, and the people at the very, very top, not so much anymore. That's what's so heartbreaking. I've often talked about farmers. I just have this respect for farmers. It's hard to match it. I'm just so amazed by it. I have been since I was a little kid. I have farmers in my family from past and now, and I've always been amazed at just the whole concept of farming and producing something and growing something and creating something and what it takes to be a farmer, the level of maintenance, the level of discipline, the level of knowledge and common sense. And there's something pure about it. I don't know what it is, but there's just something pure about it. And those are people I trust. When you travel around the country and you stop for directions, and when you travel around the country and you say, I'm sorry to intrude on you, but, my axle just fell off. Don't you hate that? Well, don't worry. We're going to help you out. Well, why? Well, that's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we do in this state. That's what we do in America. We're going to help you out. We'll do what we can to help you out. We'll call somebody. We'll help you out. We'll help you fix it. You can stay on our back porch. I got some tools in the garage. That is the United States of America. That's us. That's not our government. In fact, our government's been moving away from that for a long time. That is why this is such a heart-wrenching time for so many of us, especially older people. I'm not putting myself in that category, but I am older. But especially 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus. I can't even imagine that transition that's going on right now. So I just don't, I'm trying to figure out how we get it back. You cannot turn on trust and turn it off. Once you have broken somebody's trust, I don't know how you get it back. I mean, will we ever trust the FBI again? And it's so sad because just like America, the majority of the men and women in these organizations, the military, law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and I will go as far as to say schools. I still believe the majority of men and women teaching school could be trusted. But the reality is, we've all sat back and trusted and given the authority to the wrong people, and they have taken power from these institutions and in the process taken our trust. And that's why there's that whole other thing where, many of us believe some people are evil. I am one of those people. They believe there is a plot. I am one of those people. I do believe that there is a and a concerted effort, and has been, to destroy this country from the inside by moving it so far to the left that it matches up with global systems, and it reduces the power of the population, and it disarms us, and it limits our freedom. And I do believe that. I believe there's a conscious effort among some people. And then I think some people in government, they enable that because they're absorbed in themselves. There's a lot, we all know politicians like this. They really couldn't give a damn what direction the country goes in. They're just cranking the cash, and they're doing their job. And, I don't know what it's like in your state, but in my state, we have people that, they're a representative or a state senator, and then they work a full-time job too, and they do this cross-promotion thing, and they just crap money. And it's such a grift. It's truly a grift. And they don't do anything for us. You probably have that in your state, I'm sure. And it's kind of like, wow, how did this get by me? I had no idea you were such a whore. Trust. We trusted people that we shouldn't have. And again, don't beat yourself up on it. What we now have to do is pivot, figure out how to fix this. I wish I knew. I bet you if I had the solution, I could quadruple my audience. But we can work toward the solution. It's the trust. It's like, when you see those stories about, the bad cop who showed up and then did bad things. Because that cop took the trust that we gave him. He didn't even have to earn it. Somebody else earned it for him. It's like our government. The founding fathers earned the trust we give to scumbags like Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, he didn't earn that respect. He inherited it. But he's a lying scumbag. But thousands and millions of New Yorkers trust Chuck, and they believe in Chuck. And that's the other thing. The military earned, through blood and sacrifice, they earned all this gravitas and trust and respect and dignity that flows around some of the scummiest people on earth. Trust me, I've met some of them in person. It's not pretty. I mean, that's one thing I learn when I go to Washington, D.C. That not only, have you ever heard this term? Look, they're just people just like us. They put their pant legs on. They put their pants on one leg at a time. They're no different. The congressperson, yeah, that is true. But in a lot of cases, they're worse. They're worse. Because I respect my neighbor. I don't respect the head of DHS, Mayorkas. I believe he's a criminal. But I respect my neighbor. I respect my fellow American. I start out with that respect. Because that's the type of people we are. The majority of Americans are gracious, God-fearing, tax-paying. They're people that would not take advantage of a criminal opportunity. And somehow, we've managed to pick some of the worst to take charge of our future. And that's where they played on the trust. There's so many people in government that they exploit the trust of the military. They served, which is great, right? I never served. So I instantly have this trust and this respect for military people, especially the high-speed guys and women. Like I know a female fighter pilot. And I just, it's like I'm around a superstar. It's like people would behave around Tom Cruise or a famous. That's how I am around people that do things that to me are so beyond the scope of what most of us can do, and they're not jerks. But then, even now, we have people that have used their military backgrounds as a grift. You know, you see these people that are in, they run and then they get elected, and then they're in there and they turn out not to be trustworthy. You know, you could probably think of one right off the top of your head. Think of any dirty, not all dirty, but any dirty politician in your state that screwed you over or lied or went back on a promise or slimy, whatever. And then think back, were they in the military? And did they use the military to get you to trust them? And then they screwed you. So this is why this whole thing is so frustrating. And again, we have to figure out a way. Well, I don't know how we vet people anymore unless we do it like on our own, like we do on this or other shows or whatever, because the media is not going to do it. And when I started out, we were talking about the lack of trust in major institutions. And they were able to get away with that trust because, you know, the school teaches you who to trust and who to hate. That's what public schools do. They teach you what ideology to embrace. They're not supposed to do that, but they do. That's what they do. I'm going to do a segment coming up. I'm not going to put it in this one. But there's a segment. I'm not even going to tease it because I don't know when I'm going to get to it. But the schools are designed to basically start directing children in a political direction so they can be groomed politically in high school. Now, we know a lot of them are getting groomed sexually in nursery school. That's another failure of trust. I'll leave you with that. I'm going to do another segment because I have more content to do for the weekend edition. So I didn't think this trust thing has been bothering me for a long time because to me, that's all you have. You know, when people over the years have said to me, this cannot leave this room, it never left the room. And it's cost me a few times. It's cost me. You know, a few times there were things said in confidence that, God, if I could have just broken that confidence, that would have set this crap straight. But when I give my word, just like when you do, just like when most Americans do, but that's the trust thing. See, I believe once you get so comfortable with lying, unfortunately, the sky is the limit as a criminal. So once you get to that point, once you get to the point where you can clearly say, when it's raining outside, it's sunny, look at it, sunny, let's go outside. But it's raining. No, it's sunny. Once you get to that point, the sky is the limit as a criminal. But I base so much of what I believe and what I pursue and my interactions on trust. And the largest institutions in the world, they don't have it anymore. So I'm trying to navigate this just like you. You know? Reagan was onto this years ago. There were a lot of people that were onto this. You know, Reagan used to say the worst words to hear or whatever. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. And now think about all the institutions. Now, the left will trust because they don't think as much as other people. I know. I just lost a liberal subscriber over that, but it's true. You just don't think as much as conservatives do because your framework is you are taught to say and to think and to believe a certain way, whether it's green energy or whether it's racism or whatever. One size fits all. You need to play along. And those people end up trusting a little longer. The greatest example of that would be the vaccine. I didn't trust this COVID scam like millions of you from the first week. I thought the whole thing stank or stunk and still stinks. But people who have been programmed to believe every doctor and believe every newscaster and believe every school principal, they push their trust out longer. And that again is another downside of trust, is it not? The more you think, the more you analyze, the more you research and discern things on your own, the more you realize people are blowing smoke up your tail. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can sit back and just accept things and move along. Yes, it was a fair election, a horrible insurrection on January 6th. I'm going to get my 4 more boosters before the end of the year. Or you can start thinking for yourself, but then you really see what the hell's going on. And it's very confusing. So I'm going to wrap up with that. But I'm coming back with another segment. Because this segment was very thinky, wasn't it? It was very thinky. Very chill, very thinky. I should have had a pipe with it. I should have said, trust. You know? But anyway, don't beat yourself up. I mean, I do it. I know you do it. God, I should have known better. I should have known. No, you being of good nature, you take people at their word. I mean, you can take me at my word, but and I could take you at your word, but unfortunately, most of the Senate, we can't. The heads of major law enforcement, we cannot. Most media, we cannot. So when you look at that, think about that. Ask that question. Many years ago, I'll wrap up with this. We were doing surveys. I was in Top 40 Radio at the time, and all the consultants were coming in and doing this, and you could do these surveys. You can pay to have these surveys and ask certain questions, like, you'd ask about a morning show. What morning show puts you in a good mood? What morning man makes you feel this? What that? And I suggested. This is what I suggested as a comment, as a question to ask listeners to randomly answer. And people thought I was a nut. I said, ask the audience if there's a morning radio person you listen to, which morning radio person would you trust to watch your kids in an emergency? I thought it was a brilliant question, as I often thought about my questions. But I thought it was a great question. And they never asked it. But I know, because I asked it right on the air. I said to my listeners that if there's ever an emergency, and you're ever out somewhere, and the crap hits the fan, and you hear me broadcasting somewhere, and there's an emergency, and you need help, find me, and I'll help you out. But that's a question. Can you apply that question to people now? Would you trust every teacher with your child overnight in an emergency? Would you trust your congressperson with your bank account? Would you trust an FBI agent to be in your house overnight when you're not there? I know, blows it up, but I was very proud of that question, though, and I still am. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what proves your worth, personally. That's what proves your worth. If someone comes to you and says, my gosh, there's an emergency. Take my child. Get them to safety. Now, I believe that most Americans would do that. I do believe that. I do not believe that most of the leaders in our government could or would do that. So I know it makes me very cynical. But again, I like to break things down, break it down to the everyday. People said to me, do you still trust Donald Trump? Yes, I do. I still trust him to be president. Yes, I do. Do you trust Mitch McConnell? No, I think he should be in jail. I don't trust any of the leaders of the major law enforcement agencies. I think they're all liars. Hell, half of them have been papers of impeachment or intent of impeachment has been, and now they just now they want to impeach Biden. So no, I don't trust any of those people. How on earth can you trust a leader of the FBI and DOJ and they're still okay with people that have not been charged sitting in a jail in Washington, D.C.? That's not trust. Anyway, I had another question for that thing, too. I forget what it was. And they thought I was nuts. The question. Because we were testing all this music, and this was many years ago. And they would do music test and personality test and all these different tests. And all this stuff would go out to thousands of people. You know, and it would talk about your morning show or the music or your radio station. They'd ask all these questions. And I just thought there was never anything in there about trust. And when there's trust, you never go hungry. If you trust me, you're going to subscribe. If you trust me, you will support me. You'll say good things about me. We'll interact. If you don't trust me, you don't want anything to do with me. That's how I am. If I don't trust someone, that's it. It's off. It's done. Why even continue? Right? And life's too short. So that to me is such a great eliminator. But trust really is the key when you think about it. And we throw the word around a lot, but we don't break it down enough. For example, someone working in your home, do you trust them? Do you trust the plumber? Not only to do a good job, but look, I've got to run and pick up the kids. Are you going to be okay here by yourself for the next few hours? Well, the question is, mom or dad, is your home going to be okay? Do you trust the plumber? If you do, then that's fine. But if you don't trust the plumber, now what? How many people have you have worked for you, and one spouse or another says, yeah, he does good work, but I get a real bad vibe from him. I don't know. I just don't trust him. Then what the hell is he in your house for? Right? That's the other thing we don't do as Americans. Maybe even as humans, but I'm only an American, so I'm still a human, but I haven't lived in other countries. That's something else we don't do. And women, pay attention. You don't do this enough. Women's intuition is real. It is real. It is proven. And it has to do with them carrying life. And I've done a lot of research with crime and criminals and law enforcement and all this stuff, because I think that's part of our dynamic, right? To pay attention to that stuff. That's why I'm so adamant about manifestos being released and body cams. I want to see all this. I want to see what the hell's going on here. I just don't want to hear what the news media thinks. And one of the most common comments from women that have been assaulted at different levels, any assault is bad, is, are you ready? I knew there wasn't something right with that guy. I just felt it. Something wasn't right, but I didn't want to say anything. Why? Because by nature, we're good people. We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And that's why that happens with women. I think it's happening less now, but that was one of the things as you go through police reports. Woman said she got a bad feeling from him when he first came into the apartment, or when he first, whatever. Woman said she was, they immediately, I don't trust that. I don't trust that guy. But because of norms and being nice people, we're like, well, I don't want to make a scene. I don't want to call someone out. Why not? That's the funniest thing. I mean, Democrats spend most of their day calling anybody that disagrees with them a racist, and yet you can't get a woman sometimes, if she sees or if she's got a bad vibe, to just change direction. She's going in a place and she goes, oh, I just got a real bad vibe. I knew I should have gotten out of there. Then why? Then get out of there. Then get out of there. But these same people will say, Donald Trump's a Nazi. Well, no, he's not. He's not a Nazi. However, your vibe or your read on someone who's given your kid a bad vibe, or you're at the park and there's someone at the park and you're just getting a real bad vibe, then get the hell out of there. If you don't trust the situation, move on it. And women are the best at that. But what has society done? Society has said, well, you don't want to offend anybody. I don't care if I offend anybody or not. If you're making me nervous with your hands and your body position and where you're what you're doing around my kids, that's that. Okay, so that wraps up one of the most interesting Ken Matthews reports. I think I'll just call this Trust. Trust. What is it good for? Yeah, we'll call this Trust. The value, I'm trying to think of the title for it. The value of trust and how, well, I'll figure it out. Anyway, I'll be back with another part of the weekend edition. You can email me, ken@kenmatthewsmedia.com. You can call me, 866-536-7469. And if you forget that number, if you're listening and you don't have it in front of you, it's 833-KEN-SHOW. You can leave a message there. Sometimes we play them back on the air, but you can always get in touch with me directly, ken@kenmatthewsmedia.com. Thank you, subscribers. I trust you to keep subscribing. Hope that isn't too much pressure. Okay, we'll be right back.